All right, you guys. Apologies for yesterday's show. I don't know what happened. It never finished processing, and I sent a message to YouTube. I don't know what's going on. I did update all the software on this computer. Hopefully, it won't happen again. I know a lot of you guys like to watch the live shows back and read through the chat. In fact, I do that every single day just to critique myself and also keep an eye on the chat. And so the chat never loaded up from yesterday's show because it never finished processing. So hopefully it'll process today. Who knows? But today, let's see what happens. So what are we going to get into today? Well, we have some headlines first. And then after that, how copper became king, episode number 2 in the series, which will be about the copper IUD, the smiting of the child in the womb, learned by the fallen angels. Also, we'll get into some Game of Thrones, copper blue blood, iron fleet, as well as the ancient Hebrew word for copper, which almost is the same Hebrew word as serpent. So let's get into these headlines first. Good morning, everybody. Now, did you know? I didn't know this until one of you told me. Gasoline in Venezuela was a few cents per liter under Maduro. Now understand that, yes, there's such a thing as the Monroe Doctrine, and if we truly believe that we are immortal enemies with China and Russia, you could make the case that we need to secure our hemisphere, okay, if you believe in that. But to make the case that Maduro was a horrific dictator is simply not completely true. Dictators don't make cheap gas for their citizens. A $1 per liter is what they were paying. And if you translate that to gallons, it's like 13 cents or something. It's super cheap. Here it is right here. Now, it remains to be seen if this will continue. My guess is that as Venezuela becomes more of a capitalist society, they'll say, oh, we have to increase the amount of that it costs for people to obtain gas because they're going to have jobs now and they'll be able to pay for that. And that's a healthy economy. Now, I'm not advocating for socialism. Absolutely not. But there's something wrong, isn't there? Now, we're going to track the gas prices of Venezuela as they transition over into a democratic society, and we'll see how that works out for everybody. But I wanted to share that with you, that, not is all what it seems, and never, ever, ever forget that because we don't want socialism and Marxism in our hemisphere, we sabotage these governments with protesters that are paid, with candidates that are bought and sold and paid for, as well as we put pressure and starve the people out by getting rid of or interfering with their number one export, in this case, oil. Venezuela could not sell their oil because there were sanctions. And it's insincere for Trump to say, oh, well, it's because he's just sitting on the oil. He's not drilling it. Well, he's not drilling it because there's nowhere to sell it. And then we all saw what happened with the, quote, sanctioned, unquote, tankers, right? Those were sanctioned because it was illegal on the high seas to transport that oil because it's been sanctioned. Because that's what you call a blockade, an economy blockade. Now, to wrap your brain around this, back in the ancient times, it wasn't countries, it was castles. And I saw some of this and some of these. Sometimes I like to watch like Game of Thrones and some of these shows, from the ancient times and stuff, Vikings and stuff like that. And everybody remembers those scenes where they're surrounding the castle, right? And the castle looks impenetrable. But the problem with the castle is it can only go so long without food and water. And then the people inside start to starve, or they start to turn on each other. And the people that are, making the advance on the castle, outside of the castle, they simply cut off all supplies going in and out of the castle and wait them out. Even if they have to wait 6 months, it's going to be much easier to attack the castle once everybody's infighting with each other and angry at the king because they're starving. Do you understand how this works now? And this is our foreign policy in South and Central America. We simply interfere with imports and exports. Look what's going on with Cuba. And then we starve the people out. We hope the people turn against the government. And then we blame it all on the government and say it's the government that's corrupt. It's the government keeping all this money away from the people. Well, part of that might be true, but how much money can you steal? Would it make sense for a president to sit there and essentially anger the people if it was in his control not to? Obviously, this guy walks around. There are plenty of opportunities for him to be taken out by his own people. He was making public appearances all the way up until about 20 days ago in the middle of crowds. If they were that upset with him and angry with him, they would have taken him out, right? You see how this works? It's the dog wagging the tail. Anyway, now, not everything is evil and bad about Trump. I think what he's doing now is throwing us a couple of bones. Blackstone stock sinks after Trump plans steps to ban institutional investors from buying single-family homes. This is actually something I agree with. Why should rich investors come in and buy up hundreds of homes in an area, driving the price up? That's predatory, isn't it? And so that the rest of us can't afford homes, nor would we have the inventory. So this is actually a good thing. Now, I've yet to see the rope-a-dope with this, other than likely this is a distraction, so he could say, hey, I did something good. This is kind of rare for Trump to do something that's actually positive without causing a bunch of chaos. Now, what this will do is bring the price of housing down because there'll be more inventory. So it'll be more affordable. Hopefully your taxes will go down because our taxes are all based on the home values, right? But if you've borrowed against your home recently, or you're trying to sell your home for what you bought it for, this probably won't be a good thing. So we'll see. My guess is that since these companies aren't buying or won't be able to buy more homes in bulk like this, what it will do is simply allow more people to be able to afford homes. I think that that's going to be the net benefit to that. Now, what else is going on? Well, here's that number 66 again. By now you've heard within the last 24 hours, the U.S. is pulling out of 66 international organizations as it further retreats from global cooperation. Now, you got to wonder, because remember, Trump is the Gemini president, the 66 president. We already established this. 66 is a twin Gemini number. So you got to wonder, though, is this the precursor to other things like the United States maybe leaving NATO if they're pulling out of all this international stuff? Also, you know, they've threatened the United States. NATO has basically said, hey, you know, if you keep this up with Greenland, we're going to disband NATO. I don't know how that's going to happen when we got bases over there. But the European Union is essentially saying, we're going to shut down your bases. Well, how are they going to do that when we have all the guns? So this is getting crazy, you guys. This is getting insane. So this is what's going on the world stage. Now, if you think we're all barking up the wrong tree, Trump is ramping up rapidly to World War III. He wants to raise the U.S. military budget by 50% before he leaves office. This is the president of peace. Now, what has me most concerned about this is that at this point, we have essentially a mercenary force. ICE are essentially mercenaries. They do the will of Trump. They're highly paid. Their entire pensions are based off of how well they perform. And I don't know about you, but most people, you pay over $100,000 a year and give them a pension that will probably be close to that or match that when they retire. They're going to do whatever they're told to do. That's called a mercenary. And I believe that most of this budget will be used to essentially strengthen Trump's mercenary force. Now, pretty soon, they're not going to need the mercenaries. They'll have the robot army in place. But to transition over to that, it's going to be some hard times, because as people start to see these robots coming to the streets, they're going to need humans to, say, back off, right? I give this, I want to say, before the end of Trump's presidency, there will be robots in the streets. We already have the robot dogs, but from what I saw from yesterday's show, the Atlas robot and how that thing moved and what it could do, I don't give it another 2 years before those are on the streets patrolling. Now, they might not put weapons in their hands right away, but we are headed toward the Terminator scenario. And it's like nobody cares. Nobody cares. So here we are, you guys, 50% increase in the military budget. What else is going on? Well, if you hadn't heard, 2 more people were shot by federal agents. It wasn't ICE this time, but it was Border Protection in Portland. We don't know if they're dead or alive. We don't know what's going on. Someone mentioned that the first shooting in Minneapolis was on 33rd and Oregon Street, or Portland Street, which connects to this Portland shooting. Weird matrix we live in, you guys. So things are starting to escalate, aren't they? Here's the story on Greenland, the update on Greenland. Trump is literally considering using our tax dollars to pay each person in Greenland $10,000 to $100,000 bonus in order to purchase their country. Did you get to vote on that? Did you get to decide whether or not we were going to pay people in Greenland to take their country? I didn't get to vote on that. This is the problem with our representative government. They don't represent us anymore. Why aren't there any of these congressmen or senators doing like polls on their YouTube websites or their X accounts to see what the people want? Why aren't they doing that? Wouldn't they say, hey, let's do a poll? Why wouldn't Trump do this? Isn't he the most transparent president? Why doesn't he go on Truth Social and say, okay, let's do a poll? Do you guys want me to pay for Greenland? Overwhelmingly, it would be no. But they don't care what we want and what we think. Now, one of you pulled up a crazy story about this fungus that they found eating radiation at Chernobyl. It's called Cladosporium sphaerospirnum, and it literally eats radiation. It's a kind of black mold, and it uses melanin as a pigment to absorb high energy gamma rays. Now, why is this important? Because millimeter waves are a form of radiation. And maybe this is why we're seeing mold everywhere from our network technology. If they like radiation, they're going to like radiation of any kind. And this could cause these molds to grow. Wow. Now, tyranny is here. Understand, none of us thought this was going to come out of the right, did we? If you were to ask us, when we started this channel, we thought it was going to be Obama bringing in this kind of tyranny. But here we are, and it's the right. What is Trump saying? He's now saying we can't record ICE. Now they're trying to lump all this in with, oh, we need to protect the identities of the ICE, of the ICE officers. And people are doxing them using video. Well, there are certain people in government that are trying to say they should take the masks off. But what is that going to solve? I mean, I would agree with that, but what is it going to solve? The problem is they're doing something that is unpopular with the general public. And anytime you try to force something that's unpopular with the general public, people get upset. Now, there are a lot of people who want ICE to go through and take the illegals out. They just don't like the tactics being used to deport people and how other people are caught in the crossfire, which is what happened with the woman in Minneapolis who was shot in the face. Unbelievable. So Trump is now saying, I'm going to do what I want. You can't film them. Wow. There goes your protections. Because if we can't film them, now we got to rely on what they give us and their body cam footage, which could easily be altered with artificial intelligence. Now here's where we're at in 2026. Welcome to the beginning of the end. It's only going to get worse from here. And today's target are illegals. Tomorrow's target's going to be domestic terrorists, because this is what Kristi Noem is called the woman who obviously wasn't trying to run him over. And if you look at the law specifically says you cannot shoot someone who's trying to get away. It also says an officer cannot put themselves in harm's way to stop a vehicle. And that's exactly what he did. He stood in front of a running vehicle before it ever left park. So he broke the law first, and then obviously she did, unintentionally, I believe. Why would a mother try to do that? Now people are going after her and her past, saying she lost custody of her kids to the father, and then she went, then she turned gay and had a gay lover. So people are calling this a left-wing lunatic who tried to, this is unbelievable how they politicize this, and people have very strong feelings on both sides. I watched all the angles. She was not trying to hit the officer. She was trying to get out of the way, and it was a fatal error. She probably should have just turned the car off and gotten arrested for obstructing justice, and she'd still be alive. Wow. Now, protests are starting to pop off everywhere. People are really upset about this because people truly believe that there was just cold-blooded murder. I think it was a series of unfortunate events. The guy had already been dragged and had 30 stitches on his leg. He even looked like he had a limp, or was pretending to have a limp, right? We don't know. But why would you put an officer like that back in the field without some time off and some counseling if he was dragged under a car before that? Why would you put, it's like starting a spark in dry grass. It was only a matter of time. And if he was so afraid from being drugged before, why would he stand in front of the vehicle? He literally came around the other side and stood directly like to the front left of the vehicle. So he's partially blocking her. Now you can look up the law yourself. It's not legal to do that, for an officer to do that. This is why when you're pulled over for a traffic incident, the officer never approaches from behind the car or in front of the car. They do this because they're not allowed to do it. They're not allowed to put themselves in harm's way. They approach from the side of the car, even if it means that they're exposed to traffic that's driving by. It's the law. So, I'm not taking a side here. I'm just saying this was an unfortunate series of events. Obviously, this mother of a 6-year-old child was not trying to run over an officer. That's stupid. She knows what that would end up like. She was trying to get out of the way, and yeah, it was dumb the way she was driving. You could even chalk it up to, a crazy drive, people that don't drive very well, obviously. People don't understand that the vehicle is a huge machine and that it can be deadly. It was bad driving and bad decision making. And yes, she was likely a paid protester, is what they're saying, but that still doesn't justify what happened. Now, Trump and his team are doubling down. They're calling her literally a domestic terrorist. Now, this is going to come back to bite them. Or maybe they want the chaos. Maybe they want the standoff by saying these words. I think that that's what's happening. I think they want all of this. Okay, so Maylin says, Casey, I have to respectfully disagree with you right here because people know right from wrong and choose wrong every day. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. It's okay to disagree with me. I'm actually not even really saying anything. I'm just basically telling you both sides of what they're saying. Okay, so some believe, but I just don't believe she was intentionally trying to do it. That's where maybe we disagree, and that's fine. But here's the thing. Trump threatened Iran, didn't he? He said, if you touch a single protester, we're going in. Oh, but then we kill a protester? You think there aren't protesters in Iran damaging property and throwing things at the officers that are trying to get control over there? Of course there are. So Trump's saying, you kill a single protester and we're going in. And then we do the exact same thing a few days later. Think of the irony of that. Think of the irony. All right. Let's keep going with how copper became king. This is the series number 2. Well, let's get started, you guys. The copper IUD is the serpent beast in the womb. This is the story of the copper IUD. The serpent coiled around the T. 1988 is when the copper IUD began being marketed in the United States. And bronze is 88% copper. Let's read the story from the Bible about the womb as you look and see the similarities of the womb and the inner eye. It says they traveled from Mount Hor along the route to the Red Sea. This is the Red Sea. This, in fact, is the womb and also the parting of the Red Sea by Moses. To go around Edom, but the people grew impatient on the way. They spoke against God and against Moses and said, why have you brought us here out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? This is also the wilderness. Egypt is the pyramid of the image coming into your eye. It is the looking out instead of looking within. This is why the ancient Egyptians built pyramids on the earth. This is the earth here, the convex lens. The Israelites were led out of the wilderness. Through the wilderness for 40 years they were in the wilderness. That represents the 40 weeks in the womb of a human child. And they were led by the ark, which is the earth. The convex lens, this is an ark, the ark of the covenant. Moses parted the Red Sea with a staff. That is the hyaloid canal. He parted the Red Sea with the staff, the power of God. And the twin opposed vortexes, the pillar of fire by night and the pillar of cloud by day, is what guided them ahead of the ark. And this is it here, the two pillars, the pillar here and the pillar there, connected with the narrow gate to heaven. So they go on complaining. You have brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness. There is no bread, there is no water, and we detest this miserable food. They are cut off from the waters, the cerebral spinal fluid waters, the endless waters that are self-replenishing, and they must make their way through the vitreous humor waters, which are not self-replenishing. And it says, then the Lord sent venomous snakes among them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, we sinned when we spoke against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will take the snakes away from us. So Moses prayed for the people. The Lord said to Moses, make a snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. So Moses made a bronze snake. Bronze is 88% copper. And he put it on the pole. And then anyone was bitten by a snake and looked at the bronze snake, they lived. Now Jesus addresses this in his words, in his own words. He says, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. And so you see, we have a juxtaposition. We have the blue bloods, the copper-based blood that the Israelites had to look upon to live. And then we had the iron-based pure blood of Christ that corrects our blood, you see. So they were out of Egypt. In the womb, the copper serpent killed them. And that's exactly what the copper IUD does in the womb. Here it is, Paragard, and it is the #1 copper IUD in the world. And when you take this word Paragard and you reverse it, it says drag, A-R-A-P, dragon with, because the word para means with. And so what it really means is with the dragon. So there you have it, you guys. The root word of dragon is drag, as you can see here. Draco, dragon, dragoon, drag. It's all here. Paragard, backwards, is with the dragon. It's coiled like a serpent, self-described right here in their own words. Coiled together. Coiled like a serpent. This is it, wrapped around the pole, just as it is in the Bible. Came to market in the United States in 1988. Bronze is 88% copper. It's all there. Mechanism of action, preventing pregnancy. It is the serpent within the womb. Now, we told you that the fallopian tubes represented the serpent eating the dust of the ovaries, the days of its life, the curse placed on it, and that the anatomy of our body tells us the story of the fall of man. When we were given our flesh suits, God wanted to ensure that it was encoded so that one day we could find the truth. On your belly you will go, and dust you will eat all the days of your life, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. This was the first prophecy in the Bible that basically dictated the battle, the enmity between God's seed and the seed of the serpent. It can't be any more clear than that. And there is the snake eating the egg, which looks a lot like the fallopian tube and the ovaries. Now, this is the man that invented the IUD. His name is Ernest Grafenberg, known to have discovered the G-spot. Enter the stars. All right, so apologies for the dramatic voice. This was early Enter the Stars. This was 8 years ago, July 20th, 2017. And I've learned to calm down a bit. One channel isn't going to change the world. Back then I thought that was possible. But now we've seen all the deception, the algorithms, and the control. It's not going to happen. But it doesn't mean we stop trying. Let's get into this next video from the playlist. Game of Thrones, Rise of the Blue Bloods. The Iron Fleet of Copper Squids? Question mark. Let's take a look. Oh, by the way, the reason for the Terminator soundtrack was because that's what the enemy's trying to do. He smite the child in the womb. It's Terminator. Let me check in with you guys and we'll get into this next video. Wow. Some of you like the dramatic voice. This is Enter the Stars. Okay, let's keep going here. Sorry.
Game of Thrones, Rise of the Blue Bloods. What am I talking about? This is the fleet in the first episode of the 7th season of Game of Thrones. And this fleet, as you can see, is all about the squid. What is up with the squid? The squid are the blues. They contain the copper-rich protein hemocyanin, cyan being the blue. And this is the crystalline structure of the blue blood, the copper-based blood. And as you can see within it, the seal. Unbelievable. Now, what is going on with the hemocyanin superfamily?
Wow, blown away, right? 2,000 views 8 years ago. Literally showing you the flag of a particular country. Hemocyanin copper-based blood. You can't make this up. Look, it's a pyramid inverted on another pyramid with a hexagon in the middle. This is the problem with our social media. The real truth never gets out. It just never will. So I appreciate you guys that are here because you hunger and thirst for truth. Now, I'm going to add to this decode because Cain, his name, let's see here, etymology. See if they show it to us. Is the word cyan. It's Kyan, which means blue. Let's see if we can find it here. And that's in the original language. Was it Kn? Kn. Let's see. Here it is. The Hebrew is cyan. Kn. It means blue. So now you understand who's in control of this world. Let's keep watching here.
Well, many animals have this blue blood, including spiders, crabs, scorpions. This is the component in the blood of these animals similar to hemoglobin. The red blood cells, except these are the blue ones instead. And this is why God had Moses erect a bronze serpent on a pole for the Israelites, because God was reminding them that the blue blood is what they had to look forward to if they were to return to Egypt, because they were complaining. Bronze is 88% copper, in case you didn't know. This was all about the blue bloods versus the red bloods. This is the difference between us. Copper-based blood or iron-based blood. Now, this is interesting because it has been noted that its species using hemocyanin for oxygen transportation, including
Okay, can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. That was crazy. They didn't like that part, did they? Where we showed the hemocyanin molecule, the copper-based blood molecule, and it matched a certain flag. That was that when we got cut? Wow. So what was the last thing you guys heard before we went offline? My goodness. Yep, they just pulled the plug. Boom. That's called a hard edit. That's when you broke the matrix. Hasn't happened in a while, has it? Around the hemocyanin, you were talking about species of creatures that have blue blood in it. Okay, let's go back to that here. Sorry about that. Unbelievable. Here we go. Probably like back here. And I think I looked up Cain's. Okay, after that, I looked up Cain's name. And I said his name is cyan. There it is right there. Cyan, a variation on the word cyan. Cain means blue. Cyan is a blue color.
Bronze is 88% copper, in case you didn't know. This was all about the blue bloods versus the red bloods. This is the difference between us. Copper-based blood or iron-based blood. Now this is interesting because it has been noted that species using hemocyanin for oxygen transportation include crustaceans living in cold environments with low oxygen pressure. Under these circumstances, hemoglobin oxygen transportation is less efficient than hemocyanin oxygen transportation. So it's an efficiency of very cold environments. And winter is coming in Game of Thrones. That's why you see the blue White Walkers. They are blue. They are the blue bloods. They represent pure evil.
So what I said after this, which you guys probably didn't hear, was that it's interesting that hemocyanin copper-based blood thrives in cold environments. And it's interesting that a particular V word, VACCINE, thrived in cold environments. Wow. Let's keep going. Let's watch a couple more here. See what else we have. Here's the word copper means nakash or serpent. Let's watch this next one here.
Take care and be safe, you guys. Hey guys, Enter the Stars and another amazing discovery. And I always love it when there's confirmation of something that we've already covered. That we've trusted in the Holy Spirit and it's come full circle and we're proven to be right. And the book of Numbers 21:9 is no different. We were talking about this serpent on a pole. I was also talking to you about the squid and copper-based organisms that have blue inside of them, and that blue is the copper. That's blue bloods, and those organisms that have the blue have attributes about them that match their blood. Instead of hemoglobin, they have a copper-based blood. Instead of iron, they have copper. And they have, like for instance, the squid has blue ink, the blue crabs. All of these are copper-based organisms. Some centipedes are copper-based as well as spiders. Well, this is what we found. The serpent, the word for serpent, nakash, is almost the same word for bronze. This is shocking. This is the word nakash for serpent. And when you look at bronze or brass, that word is nakosheth. So we have nakosheth and nakash. And now we begin to understand that the bronze serpent is depicting the unclean blood. Now, this is interesting because, I'll get to the point here, the word for brass or copper is nakosheth. And you're probably, bells are going off right now because you've heard Jonathan Kleck talk about Nakash, which is the snake. It is the serpent. Nakash is almost the same word as Nakosheth. So the serpent and the copper are almost one and the same word. Copper being the blue blood. Now you understand what all this means. Now I looked at this whole black tears that they like to show us in music videos and television, and come to find out that this squids, they give off this cephalopod ink, and that in fact the ink is blue. Squid ink is blue-black. It's blue because this is a copper-based organism. Now we saw this in Game of Thrones, the Iron Fleet. Well, iron is red bloods, and there's a big red symbol in the middle of the squid and the Iron Fleet of ships. But yet it's got a squid, which is a blue blood, so they're mixing the red and the blue. And so now when you see these tears, these black tears being depicted in pop culture, what they're really showing you is the squid ink, the blue blood. This is why you always see this associated with evil and hybrids, the hybrids, okay? So I think we're getting to the bottom of some of this stuff. The black goo is like the black tears, but it's really like a really dark blue. So there you guys have it. The blue, copper, the blue bloods are the one and the same of the word serpent. They're
All right, you guys. Well, I think we'll probably end the show with that. Wow, that was a crazy interruption. Let's go into the chat for a little bit. But you can see the progression of the information, how it built on of itself. And that was over the span. The 3 videos that I just showed you were over the span of about 6 months. We began to see all of it kind of coalesce together as we were figuring it out. So yes, 2 races are the governed and the governors. You're absolutely right. Yes, the Satan is the ruler of this world. Jesus told us this, and he said, "You are of your father, the devil." He told the Pharisees this, the rulers of this world. They rule over us until Jesus' new kingdom comes. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And it's important to understand who these people are who are ruling over us, okay? Otherwise, you'll be tricked and deceived every time. You'll fall for their tactics. All right. Okay, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll probably have more headlines and part 3 of how copper became king. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. Much love. Take care, everybody.